The James and Diana Ramsay Foundation is a charitable trust that supports the arts, medicine and youth at risk. It was established by Diana Ramsay AO in 2008 to continue the giving she began with her husband James more than 50 years before. This film will show you a little about Diana and James, the people and organisations they treasured, and how the foundation that bears their names also nurtures their dreams for a better world. Diana was born in 1926. Her father was the pioneering winemaker Sidney Hamilton, and she grew up in an environment full of interest.
We didn't have much in the house when I was a little kid, and I used to love helping my dad, whether it was fixing up a piece of vineyard gear, and I learnt from those experiences, just ordinary common experiences, how to look after the needs.
Diana's father, Sidney, learned self-reliance very early.
Father ran away to sea as a boy because his father had died, and the mater couldn't stop crying when her husband had died. And father couldn't bear people wailing all day long about something like that. He was quite young then. We would have been about 13 or 14. He learnt about survival and the best way to use materials at hand.
Sidney's brother Ian was a surgeon who gave Diana an early interest in the medical world.
When you go trotting around hospitals with your father or your uncle, Uncle Ian, you saw needs. And so if I saw needs, I liked to go and help. That's as basic as that.
Diana trained as a medical social worker, and this exposed her to broken families and disadvantaged young people.
Some of the boys and girls who went to some of these homes, they were as rough as diamonds, and they did belt one another about. And yes, it's time to rejuvenate them, point out to them that there is another life apart from belting the girls and the boys here in the same home. Yes, make them feel wanted.
Meanwhile, in 1959, Diana was introduced to a young accountant, James Ramsay.
My mother-in-law said, James has rather bad health. He has a lot of trouble. And I said, that's all right, I'll look after him. And so I looked after him and he looked after me. End of question.
James' father was the noted Tasmanian surgeon, John Ramsay.
James's father, John, I know him by reputation. He was at the Launceston General Hospital and was a man's man in Tasmania. He had tremendous social activity. He was a great master surgeon, and he was the first surgeon to be knighted in Australia. I think that one could say that he was a risk taker, and the example of the cardiac arrest under anaesthetic, where he made the decision immediately to enter the chest cavity and massage by hand, to me is extraordinary. But that's the sort of man that he was. He took risks, and in his case, they always came off.
James and Diana also shared a love of art and beauty.
Her father took her to the gallery to see a Nora Heysen painting when she was 10 years old, and it was a flower still life, and she thought it was so exquisite and beautiful, and she wanted to go back and visit over and over again. It was something that held her, and she knew that that would be something that would captivate her for the rest of her life.
James came from a family with strong artistic heritage. His uncle was the Australian painter Hugh Ramsay.
He painted really very beautiful portraits of people, and that was one of the areas that he became well known for. Tragically, his life was cut short, so his very modest output was limited, and he is still remembered as an artist that had so much potential, that really defined the moment when we broke with European tradition and started painting paintings that were all about being here in Australia.
As their circumstances changed, James and Diana became increasingly interested in philanthropy. But who to give to?
Their philanthropic interest was really inspired by the Felton bequest. That was a bequest left in 1904 to the Victorian community, largely to support women and children's charities in Victoria, but also the National Gallery of Victoria.
And they were very generous with the Art Gallery of South Australia in particular, had a great love of the arts and travelled the world looking at various art galleries and museums in the world and translated that knowledge and desire and experience back into giving to the Art Gallery of South Australia. So they had a very big focus on the arts in South Australia.
They contributed enormously to the Australian, European and Asian collections, and their taste isn't necessarily just limited to paintings.
Diana and James were right there at the very beginning. I mean, when we started off this whole idea of private support, it was way back in the 80s, and they were one of the first couples to, sign up. And I think made leadership donations, which then got other people interested and thinking, oh, well, that's something that we could do as well.
But also encompasses areas like music in particular, youth at risk, education in general. So they had a very broad giving exercise as far as they were concerned, and it spanned literally decades.
Since 1972, James and Diana Ramsay's support has really been transforming, both in terms of the acquisitions of the gallery, but also in terms of their leadership and their stewardship. Diana was part of the gallery's foundation, and she's one of the original directors of the foundation. She was also a board member on the art gallery board, and so her leadership in steering the gallery has been really important during periods of great growth.
One of James and Diana's special memories is taking the Australian Ballet to London. They helped them perform in London in front of the Queen. Diana still very fondly talks about that. But one of the things they saw in London was surtitles at the local opera company. And they thought, we don't have that in Adelaide. We go to the opera and, interpretation is left to one's own imagination. So after they got off the plane, they went straight to the State Opera of South Australia. And that was in 1988. And the surtitles were established, and they have been funding them ever since. So 25 years that program was established, and we have been funding it to this day.
But James' ill health was a lengthening shadow. He died in 1996, and for some time beforehand, their thoughts had turned to how their giving could continue in the long term.
We have great evidence of James and Diana aspiring to a foundation or trust in the future. We have many handwritten letters on file from James or Diana to some of their cherished organisations to say that they aspire to have such a foundation, but may never realise that, but that's their dream and their hope. So they thought about it for a very long time, and this inspiration came from the Felton bequest.
And so the James and Diana Ramsay Foundation was born, embodying a key message from the Ramsay family crest.
Ora and Labora's Latin translation is prayer and work. It's an old rule from St Benedict's back in the 15th century, I believe. And that's part of Diana's mantra. It means basically contemplation first and then action. And that's very much part of Diana's life, her personality, as well as James's, and very much part of the James and Diana Ramsay Foundation's mantra as well. We have a very broad canvas in terms of grant making, and we will seek small charities, large charities. Most importantly, we want to make a difference, which is very important from our point of view. And if we can help a small, struggling charity with a major project, we'll certainly look into it, and if we feel it meets our mission statement, more than happy to support it longer term.
In the arts, the Foundation is committed to supporting high-quality arts programs to encourage a robust arts sector and increase its accessibility.
Without the arts, you are nowhere. You have nothing. Arts give you all sorts of interests and stimulation, things to think about. Can I do it too?
In the medical field, the Foundation is committed to supporting and advancing medical research and education.
Well, there again, that's about helping those who are needing something, who have something to contribute in life, and it would be good if you can help them to expand their wishes.
The Foundation will support programs for youth at risk to help empower young people to build strong foundations for life, as well as offering life-changing educational opportunities.
Some young people don't realise their capabilities, you know. You may have noticed that in life. And if you can help them put them on a track which has some end to it, you can achieve quite a lot of things and make somebody happy as well.
We run a program for young offenders and young people at risk. We work up in the Flinders Ranges, hence the name, where we take young people between the age of 14 and 18 on an 8-day trek where they walk about 100 kilometres, live out under the stars, have to do for themselves. But I guess the young people we're working with are young people who are troubled in life, who are what we call at risk. They come in troubled, angry, rebellious.
I'm going to go back home with a different look on life and try and make it a bit better at home. I don't know, I probably just appreciate stuff more, like lots of stuff, like being around like my brothers and my sisters.
A lot difficult out here, and once you live out here for a week or two, you start learning that you actually got to respect what you do got at home.
They're transformed over those 8 days, and it's almost miraculous, the change they make.
We've initiated the James and Diana Ramsay Foundation studio, which welcomes young people into the gallery and lets them discover their own creativity. So with the Foundation's support, we can present children's activities 7 days a week in the gallery.
What the Ramsay Foundation has helped us to do is to establish a database to study the outcomes of children with neurosurgical conditions. When it was first supported by the Foundation, it was with a view of helping South Australian children. But the way it's developing, the effects of this and the benefits are going to be very far-reaching. This has obviously been quite visionary from the Foundation to help our work because the benefits are going to be very widespread.
With the Australian Ballet's production centre, that's been a huge support for that fit out and the building of the production centre, which is really revolutionising the way we now maintain, look after and travel our sets and costumes.
When they see performers like metres away from them, they're blown away by that. And I'd love to see some of our children go on and do it simply for pleasure, but if they achieve greater heights, that would be fantastic.
James and Diana wanted to ensure that regardless of people's economic status, their education or their geography, they could enjoy and be a part of creative endeavour that was the best in the world. And their support of the gallery has ensured that to date, and it will continue to ensure that into the future. As a next chapter to our relationship with James and Diana Ramsay and the Foundation, we're really thrilled to present the Ramsay Art Prize. It seems quite appropriate that we celebrate the Ramsay name in this manner, an art prize that encourages the best artists from around Australia to display their works and to celebrate the best works that are possible every 2 years in Adelaide.
Foundations such as the Ramsay Foundation, these philanthropic organisations,
play a huge role in helping advance medical research.
Without philanthropy, we wouldn't be here. I mean, it's common knowledge that governments are finding it increasingly more difficult to raise funds. And so whilst we do get some government support, we have to raise most of it ourselves from philanthropic organisations or from sponsorship. And so it's an essential part of our whole being, if you like.
Philanthropy's changed a lot over the last few decades. It's not just about writing a cheque anymore. It can be about giving time, money, advice, about being an ambassador for the organisation. And if you're involved in an organisation over a long period of time, you really get to understand their needs and their challenges, and we can work together to make a real difference.
I love the fact that, you know, we don't just, you know, snatch and run because I think that, you know, to me, the people are actually the important, you know, part of what we do.
Giving matters because it makes you feel good when it's all said and done. It's an emotional engagement with life in general and community in general. And Diana and James worked it out many, many years ago. You can't take your money with you. That's the bottom line.
And if you can be helpful to them and they can get a bit more out of life, do it. Don't sit around and do nothing. Life's too short.